Alright, what is going on, IK fam? I'm back again today for another IK video. I'm excited because we haven't done a server update in a little while, and I wanted to take some time to talk about where we're at, some things that we've gone through, what kind of some of the short-term and the long-term goals are now for S8, and I also want to give some shout-out love too as well. We're going to do all of that coming up. So right now we are at 53.5 days old, right? Shout out to my boy Iceman over there from TSP, who again just got COR round 2 under their belt. Now, with that, right, let me start off giving you guys an overview, kind of like I do with S8. So, as most know who've watched our S8 update videos, right, we really view ourselves as kind of the flagship server in IK, right? We're just a solid test server for what it looks like when you are able to organize and unify a server early on. The TLDR here is that when myself, right, for people that know me from Rock, right, especially for people that were a part of my jump groups, or if you're familiar with jumper projects, right, by just organizing big groups and then just having them join a new server or starting in one server / kingdom, right, getting resources and then just kind of, rinse, washing, and repeating. We more or less did it on a little bit more of a smaller scale, bigger than what we did in S6, because S6 we just went in with one alliance. S8 we went in with 6 alliances, but we only had them about a third of the way filled. So it wasn't a large amount of players that we came in with, but the idea and the structure that we had behind our goals going into S8 was. So we came in, right, 2 alliances, each faction, that was our focus, and then we eventually kind of condensed that to about 4 active alliances, right? And that's just again assessing. I shouldn't even say assessing, right? That's just factoring in general drop off, right? That for anyone who has been a part of a large group, players are going to fall off at any point, whether that's in the beginning, throughout, or at any time in between. So we get to 4 now, right? We are spreading the map because we wanted to work with everyone, right? The reason why we came in to server 8 with a large presence is because of what we've seen happen in servers 1 through 7, especially with server 6 that we were in, where you just don't know how other alliances are going to act. You don't know if they're just going to want to take the best stuff for themselves, if they want these cities and they're going to give you limited cities, or they'll take whatever they want, kind of pick of the litter, and then you're left with scraps. Will their entire faction band behind them? Will the top 2, top 3, top 4 alliances take everything? Again, you don't know. So we came in with a larger presence because we wanted a bigger hand in being able to manage how the server was going to run while we worked with everyone, as we have been, right, since the first week that S8 has been open. And because of that, I do want to give a big shout out, because with the amount of time we spent in S8, we actually just did an audit. And right now, this was like an alliance activity audit, right, for based on where we're at. And at the moment, we have about, I want to say it was around 1,200, plus or minus, core active players, not accounting for any new accounts or players that are semi-active, but core active players that are still in S8, which is, in my opinion, I think fantastic. If you look at servers 1 through 7, they have less than that, right? Probably the second most active server, right, that is really prepping themselves, I would say okay, right, would probably be server 6 or 5. Server 6 probably has a little bit more activity than server 5 overall, right, and mainly just because server 5 is a war server, as some people know, along with some other the newer servers that have kind of started to become classified that. But, right, these are important things because, sure, some people might hear me say 1,200 and you're like, it's not really a lot of people. To be honest, when you get to about a month, almost 2 months into your server, and if you have more than that, right, again, I would say, or even about that, I would say you're in a great place. There's about, from what we've gathered, 20K players that usually start out minimum in every new server, right, that they'll load in. And even though we don't know what the threshold is, I can only tell you from my experience. In S6, I saw over 20,000 players getting loaded in, right? Because everyone gets a new name like Lord. And you can even see, right, like 39769, right? This shows you there's probably 40,000 players that joined this server, right, which is S8, right? And who knows how many more that is, right? Because the numbers reset. So when you go into a new server, right, someone will eventually be Lord 001, at least from what we've gathered so far. And if that is the case, then that shows you kind of what some of the threshold numbers are for new players that they look to join servers before they consider popping open a new one. So with this in mind, we've seen these numbers reset when we've gone from S6 to S8. So the thing, though, that I think is most important is that in the beginning stages of any server, right, it's really about getting everyone on board. And as I said, right, I do want to give a huge shout out because, you know, S8, even though I talk S8 up, rightfully so, because S8 has put in some work, and we really are in this fantastic place right now where our server has been unified and we have been pushing the same objectives, right, after we've kind of filtered out, cut out some of the fat, right, and now we're really lean going forward, right. Again, right, Iceman from TSP, right, even Bugga from Lion, you know, and even the VK guys, right, which we were having kind of back and forth with in the beginning. Right now that Renazia is leading over there, right, it seems like some things are turning around, which is fantastic, right. Doskius over at VS, right, he took that over when I was doing the interim lead there, right. He's been stepping up with Vlad, some of the officers there. Manager and TBK, right, they've always been big supporters, right, of really wanting to kind of push the server forward. Rico, right, he's been a solid rock for us in HLS. Right, little Thali, shout out to you, Thali. You know, she's been doing a great job over there in DGE. Even Major here at God, right? One of the leads here that I talk to kind of on an average basis. Proud, or some Polga here at Anna has been doing a great job. Proud at KNA, right? She's fantastic. I think she shares with Sasuke. So again, right, we have really good, even though, you know, you'll start seeing some of the drop off, right? I would say kind of top 10, top 9 to top 10 is really active right now. And that is something that I think has happened because of us condensing, right? Every server eventually is going to have to condense over time. These are things that everyone is going to have to take into account. But for us, right, working through our Contention of Relics event, which we did now in our second round, and I want to say is probably our most successful event that we've done so far because of the way that we set it up, right, with just rotating faction wins based on the active amount of players that we have. And you can tell even with our rankings, right, the distribution is really good. The top 3 is all one faction, 4 to 6 is all one faction, 7 to 9 is all one faction, right? So you have 3 alliances in each of the factions, right, that are in the top 9. That is really almost as good as you can get it, in my opinion. And I think that it says a lot for where we're going forward as a server, right? And now it's really a matter of, you know, let's get ready for, you know, once we hit our 90-day migration period, right, it's probably going to be us starting to look at things like recruitment, how we're going to do city redistribution, right? And we even came up with 2 different city redistribution, actually 3, I should say, right? We started out thinking, okay, you know, let's try, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, right? Let's start with 16 alliances, and we'll split it up where each of them gets 5 cities, because there's 80 cities total. You divide that by 16, you get 5, right? 1 of each resource, but technically it's really 1 of each resource for the top 9 if you factor in capital cities, right? And then the number 10 through 16 will try our best to give them 1 of each resource. And I want to say it doesn't start becoming an odd number until you get to about like the 13-14 rank, and then you might have to double up or do some single doubles or even triple up on some resources, just because there's just not a pure balance there of resources. If you minus the 9 gold cities from 80, right, you end up at 71. So you can't really evenly divide that by 4 because you would hit 72 ideally. So you are going to have some imbalance when it comes to like the food, the wood, the stone, or the iron production cities. So with that in mind, right, then we decided, okay, now we need to start thinking longer term, right, because we started with the idea of 16, but now our activity has really condensed to more or less the top 10. So now we need to really be thinking about, you know, potentially condensing it even more, arguably to the top 9. And so that's why we came out with like a top 12 and then a top 9 city distribution list. So that way we could adapt when it comes to condensing activity. Now, some people who've played Kingdom Builders before, you probably know doing things like preparing shells in advance is really important. These are things that we've been doing from day one. And, that's why I think us condensing to like go from 16 to 12 is a good idea, because one, it still allows for our top active alliances to get a few more cities. And it also allows us an opportunity to bring in more players, small, medium to large size groups that do want to migrate to S8, an opportunity, right, to fill into shells, right, after we kind of get done maxing and pushing the activity into our top 9, top 10, right, to really fill those out by clearing out some of the silent, maybe some of the present status players, right, and then we're just really starting to set ourselves up even for further success. So again, right, we have had our own challenges. I know some of them I've talked about before, right, with some of the early VK scuffles, right, a little bit with Lion, a little bit with some others, but for the most part, a lot of it has been very small, just in its scope of how impactful it was on the server. And I think a lot of that was because of us taking that initiative to reach out early, to do a lot of the diplomacy, to do a lot of the relationship building that I think is vitally important, right, when you're getting into a server. And then I think the plus side is that, we had some of the strongest players, if not the strongest true power players on the server. So it lent us a little bit more of a deterrent, right? We had this nice backup where even though we didn't come out and just unleash, any of our top players on everyone, right? People knew that because we had this restraint for viewing the bigger picture on what we wanted to happen with the development of the server, and we didn't just go out and take whatever we wanted, right? I think that earned us some respect, right? You even look at the positions now, right? And even for like COR, right? We had, I want to say about 9 or 10 players from SS that went over to TSP because they wanted to be able to get the special gold nodes and other reward nodes that are in the Forbidden Zone, right? And then they're going to come back after that. So, it just kind of shows that there's a lot of different ways to manage a server, to manage a kingdom. But I think S8, as I've said, right, I think is in a great spot. Like, as an example, I messaged the top, I think, 11 or 12 alliances yesterday. Every single one of them got back to me within, I want to say within like, gosh, I really want to say it felt like 6 to 8 hours, right? It was a pretty quick turnaround time when I was asking them for audit numbers. And keep in mind, some of these alliances and these leads are not a part of the Syndicate family, right? So that is another area that I want to give a big shout out to, because if I ever tried to do something like that in Rock, right, for alliances that weren't a part of our family, dude, they would tell me to kick the hardest rocks ever, right, and just keep it moving, Pippin. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I would get. And so, it's wild, because I think about S8 right now and just how much potential it still has going forward into SVS, going forward for how everyone is working together, right? Players are really starting to now kind of see the big picture. And even though our project was more or less smallish in scale, as far as when we started, right? Like, we could have came in with 9 or 12 alliances, right, if I would have kept recruiting for another week or two. We even recruited during a time when they didn't have the recruitment channels on the official IK Discord, right? So it was a lot harder to organize and took a lot more time, and we even still had a smaller window, right? So when I think about if I ever wanted to do another project or something like that in the future, right, whenever that may be, right, it would be so much easier to build a bigger group and a bigger project for a new server than it was coming into S8. But even with all of that being said, man, I am still so happy on where S8 is going. It's almost like S8 is the pinnacle, because if you really think about it, right, you could argue that across between Rock and IK, right, this is like my 5th project, so to speak. Even though it was so small in scope, it's not even comparable because it was on such a smaller level than what I've done in Rock, right? But it's wild because things are just going so well. And, again, not to jinx anything, right? But, again, I hope that will keep up, right? And we'll be able to start seeing a lot more of that from the other alliances as well that do want to be a part, right, of what we want to include them in on and everyone in on in S8. So, Anyways, I'm sure I probably rambled like on and off, and I did talk about some S8 update points for kind of where we're at and how it's looking. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I guess even if you just listen to it as a podcast, more or less, to listen to my ramblings. But guys, look, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. As I've mentioned, I'm really excited to see where S8 is going to go. As always, if you enjoy the content, sub to the channel, hit the notification bell to get updates on when we have new videos coming out. If you guys are interested in checking the game out and want to support the channel, BN has a download link that's at the top of the description, which you can click on if you're interested in checking out the game. Also, there's official IK resources right below that as well. And if you guys want to join our S8 server Discord, now officially being rebranded to BN's multi-game community, where we do have IK and our S8 section. You guys are more than welcome to come and check us out. Also, final note, remember, this Tuesday, is when we do our Server 8 Town Hall meetings at 13:30 UTC. So that's going to be, gosh, let me double check here, If everything stays on pace, and again, you can join our server to get updates, but that'll be on March 9th. And then at 14:30 UTC, an hour later, we're going to be doing a IK Town Hall in the official IK Discord. So if you guys want to come and check that out, you're more than welcome to as well. That's it. I'm done with my mouthpiece. I'm out. Until Monday, peace it, homies. And ladies as well.